love the DemiKids series. It's a very unique blend of classic Megami Tensei themes, but with the facade of something more family-friendly and made for kids. However, one of the things I love the most about it is that they are willing to give us demons from mythological branches that we don't often get to see in other entries. From classic Greek gods to late 90s American internet culture, I'm back with 10 more demons in the Megami Tensei franchise that only exist within the DemiKids series. As always, if you like what I do and want me to talk about even more demons on this channel, please help me out with a comment, subscribe, maybe even check out the Patreon. It really all does help a lot. Alright, let's get started. Greek mythology is one of the most overused, overplayed, and cliched branches of mythology to focus on. So many series, including those found in Megami Tensei, tend to use Greek myths as a free idea bucket, and it's perfectly normal to be sick of seeing this particular pantheon, ranging from the big names like Hades to more obscure folks like Cleodora. And yet, you gotta admit, it's weird that a figure as huge as, Poseidon only exists in DemiKids of all places. I actually do really like the design. I like the blending of the bearded, regal king of the seas into this manta ray, but I imagine if Doi ever incorporated this figure into modern titles, he'd probably connected a bit more to his other Olympians like Zeus and Demeter. But hey, if we ever want a modernized human manta hybrid, we've always got the wine-loving Gilfs persona in P5X. Back in my first video on this subject, I talked about Nessie, aka the Loch Ness Monster, and thought it was very bizarre that such an iconic and world-renowned cryptid was relegated to the DemiKids series. One of my astute viewers brought up an interesting point, that Japan is usually less interested in Nessie and more intrigued by Mokele Mbembe, an African cryptid who is basically a land Nessie, with the belief that this figure is a sauropod rather than a plesiosaur. And you know what? That's fair. That's very fair. So hey, did you know that Mokele Mbembe is also in Megaten, but stuck in the DemiKids series? And just look at this derpy dino, I love him. Even if he does kind of look like Dino and Great Gazoo had an illegitimate love child. As much as I dig this design, we'd definitely be looking at a pretty hefty redesign if this thing ever made it into other entries in the franchise, but for now, I think it's darn near perfect as a DemiKids demon. Alice is one of the most iconic figures in Megaten, and despite claims that she wasn't intentionally based on Alice in Wonderland, there's no denying that the franchise makes a lot of references to the Lewis Carroll story with her. Have you ever noticed we don't really see many other Wonderland residents too often? It's not that they don't exist, they just often only appear as demons in DemiKids. For example, and I'm gonna do a 2-for-1 here, both the White Rabbit and Mad Hatter appear only in this series. The White Rabbit is actually called the Clock Rabbit in Japanese, and TikTok in English. Same spelling and everything. Not even joking, can't make that up. I think it's pretty unlikely we'll ever see Clock Rabbit in a modern game, because when the franchise wants Alice to interact with a White Rabbit, they typically just use the hair of Inaba, but I still think both of these figures are worth acknowledging. Oh, and if you're wondering where the March Hare is in all this, he's actually only in Giten Megami Tensei, so I guess mark that down as a future video idea. About a year ago, I did a video on neglected Megaten demons that we haven't seen in a while, and I capped it off by talking about the iconic figure Dead Lobster, believing that the more playful myths and folklore centered around real animals, like the idea of black cats bringing bad luck, were a perfectly solid realm for Megaten demon ideas. Well, someone working on DemiKids decided to try that out by giving us the Counting Sheep, or Shep as they were known in English. The idea of counting sheep is a common mental activity that people use to try and fall asleep, to the point where sheep are an iconic symbol associated with sleep or the lack thereof. And these designs are so simple yet perfect as they are. They're just adorable little sheep, and they're all numbered so we can count them. Like, just look, there's 1 sheep, 2 sheep, 3 sheep. What comes to your Megaten mind when I say Archangel? Well, besides the actual demon called Archangel. Usually one of the big 4, right? The truth is, there are actually a lot of other major angels, arc or otherwise, and some of them are exclusive to DemiKids of all places. Like Barachiel here, who carries bread, is the leader of the Guardian Angels, is a Pisces, loves long walks on the beach, and I think I'm getting off topic. Look, my point is, Megaten has done some cool stuff when they are willing to bring more angels into the franchise with larger roles. We've seen this well enough through figures like Kamael, Abdiel, and of course, Mastema. So yeah, when I see a large and iconic Archangel stuck as a low-level cartoon shark robot man called Mariner, I want to see what they could pull off with this. If you've ever watched one of my Myths for Megami Tensei videos, you're probably aware that I always like to award one spot to something incredibly unique. Something that goes beyond being a powerful god or local superstition, but something connected to the real world in an interesting way. Do you know why I hold on to that hope? Because DemiKids has shown us that it can work. I bring unto you Melissa. For those of you that are too young to remember, and my YouTube analytics show I definitely have viewers too young to remember, Melissa was a massive computer virus that spread around the internet in 1999. It basically just flooded email servers, slowing them down to a crawl, and infecting anyone who opened up the document that it sent. At one point, it was believed that over 1/5 of the computers in the world were infected with the Melissa virus. I'm a big fan of Melissa's design here and hope that any modern interpretation would keep a similar vibe, though they'd probably scrap her coming out of a Game Boy. Melissa being depicted as a cute woman though is actually very fitting given her original starting point and the contents of that document she sent because, yep, straight up porn. DemiKids had a porn virus demon. Let that sink in. I'm a big fan of adding figures from mythologies that don't have a lot of representation in the franchise. Quick, name a figure from Inuit mythology. Right? In fact, there are only 3 in the franchise, and the only one most of you are likely familiar with is Sedna. Well, DemiKids has a perfectly good figure ripe for revival in the form of Issitoq. This figure, whose name roughly means he who sees all, is an all-seeing being who punishes those that commit taboos. While Issitoq is shown in DemiKids to be this steel-jawed yeti-like figure, most Inuit tales showcase it as a giant floating disembodied eyeball. Personally, I'd love to see these traits combined into a modern redesign. Have it be a giant floating eye, but, you know, still covered in white fluffy fur. This is another one where I just find the concept of it so interesting as the basis for a demon that I just had to talk about it. A Gris Gris is a specialized custom talisman from African cultures. It's usually depicted as a small bag with ritualistic objects and specially written passages on it. In its earliest days, these amulets would ward off evil spirits or even function as birth control. They eventually made their way to the States via slaves, some of whom attempted to use their magic to rightfully punish their oppressors, turning them into a form of dark magic. Gris Gris are still popular in Cajun and Haitian culture through both positive and negative connotations, and are sometimes depicted as a doll carrying the small bag, which seems to be the basis for the DemiKids design. From Pythos to Excalibur, I really like having figures based on mythological items as well as mythological beings. And now that I'm thinking about it, dang, Excalibur only exists as a demon in DemiKids too. Why didn't I include that on this list? This design is awesome. Is it really one of my lists if I don't toss in the obligatory Goetian demon? This time, I think I'll go with Andromalius, or Andromus as he was known in the English version. He's depicted as a man holding a serpent, which, yeah, is actually what we have here in DemiKids. His job is to help his summoner find stolen items by tracking down and punishing thieves. Honestly, he's one of the more beneficial of the 72 demons and seems pretty loyal to his summoner. If we ever do get him in a modern entry in the franchise, maybe he can punish the guy who took my Amazon package from off my porch. Hope you're enjoying those novelty salt and pepper shakers, you major jerk. And lastly, Ikonda, ancient Japanese poisonous fish from the Ainu, the indigenous people of Japan. We've seen a few myths from these tribes in the series before, most notably Koropakur, but Ikonda is fascinating to me. This large, seemingly sinister fish would spread plague and disease on land and sea. I actually really like the sunfish design seen here, but I'm curious how Doi would modernize the figure for us. If you try searching for Ikonda, you really don't get many results, with a lot of the sources just leading back to the DemiKids demon. But that's kinda why I love seeing these more obscure, underrepresented myths make a splash in the franchise, as both a way to spread knowledge and raise more cultural awareness. But yeah, obviously I was going to include this one. I love the ocean and aquatic life in general, and poison is my favorite type in Pokemon, so a poisonous fish is kind of a no-brainer for me. Alright, and there we go. That's 10 more demons that only exist in the DemiKids series. For a series that was only around for 4 years, minus a 2011 mobile game, it's still really impressive to me how many new and unique demons we got from these games that we've just never seen since. As always, if you know of any other DemiKids demons you think I should talk about, let me know in the comments, and maybe I'll revisit this idea for a third time. I had fun with both of these videos, so I'm sure there's a lot more to check out. Thanks for watching, really hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, take care.